Alabama, let's get it.
The process, no one can stop this. Hottest show in the streets, I bet you can't top this. Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
Recruiting news and interviews, just sit back and watch this.
The process.
Hey everyone, welcome into a new week of The Process, Crimson Tide Recruiting. I am your host, Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama. Thank you guys so much for joining me on this new episode of The Process. The first thing I need you to do for me really quickly is hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you're not a subscriber, just make sure that you are a subscriber or become a subscriber to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube. If you are a subscriber, be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified when we drop content on our YouTube page. I am here each week to break down the latest in Crimson Tide football recruiting news. You guys can call in and be a part of the show by leaving your Alabama football recruiting question via voicemail at our voicemail line at 205-984-3222. Call that number, leave your Alabama football recruiting question via voicemail, and it could be answered on a future episode of The Process. That number will be located on the screen throughout the duration of today's show. On today's episode of The Process, I do want to answer the question that a lot of fans have about the Crimson Tide's push for five-star quarterback Arch Manning. Is Arch Manning backing off of the Crimson Tide, or are the Crimson Tide backing off of Arch Manning? I will give my thoughts on the Crimson Tide pushing for the five-star quarterback, and also talk about some other quarterbacks who the Crimson Tide are going after in the 2023 recruiting class. I will also provide an update about a couple of 2023 defensive lineman targets for the Tide, as a couple of guys have announced their top school list. They continue to announce those top schools list, and another top target for the Crimson Tide along the defensive line wants to officially visit the Crimson Tide this fall. He also hopes to visit this summer. I will talk about him a little later in the show, but we're going to start things off by talking about a 2024 defensive lineman out of Texas who actually made Nick Saban do something he does not usually do, and he actually picked up the phone and informed 2024 four-star defensive lineman Nigel Smith about his offer from the Crimson Tide. Of course, Nick Saban has offered guys in the past, but it's usually an assistant who gets on the phone and informs the guy that he has an offer from the Crimson Tide. Saban does it from time to time, usually when he really likes a guy's film, and Nigel Smith is a guy who he really liked when he watched his film recently. Smith, like I said, is a 2024 defensive lineman out of Melissa High School in Melissa, Texas. Currently standing at 6'5" and weighing 260 pounds. Had a great 2021 football season. Had a total of 66 tackles. Had 20 tackles for loss and 10 sacks. A huge defensive lineman. When I take a look at his film, I really like his movement with his arms in terms of his rush moves. I really think he has a great repertoire at an early age, with him coming off of his sophomore season. Saban told Smith that he was impressed with multiple facets of his game, including his ability to bend, his ability to use his hands, how quick he was off of the football. So he's going to be a 2024 defensive lineman to know moving forward. He said it meant a lot to him to get an offer from the Crimson Tide, of course, but it meant a whole lot more to get that offer from Nick Saban. He said he feels that Saban is arguably the greatest coach of all time, which is something you hear from almost every recruit. But Nigel Smith is going to be a 2024 defensive lineman to know. Nick Saban really seems to like him, with him extending the offer to him personally recently. So he's going to be a 2024 recruit to pay attention to moving forward. Now we're going to switch our attention to a couple of 2023 defensive linemen, starting with Kelby Collins, the four-star defensive lineman out of Gardendale High School in Gardendale, Alabama. Recently released his top five, included the Crimson Tide along with some other top tier programs. When you take a look at Collins' top five, he has the Crimson Tide, of course, like I said. He also has Florida, Georgia, Oklahoma, and South Carolina. A team that was a bit of a surprise who was listed in his top five is South Carolina, but he actually recently took a visit to the Gamecocks, and it really seems as if that visit played a huge role in them being included in his latest top schools list. I see that Oklahoma is included as well. In my opinion, I feel Oklahoma is starting to do a better job at recruiting the state of Alabama, with them hiring their new head coach, and I think Kelby Collins listing them in his top five shows that. Along with Peter Woods, Oklahoma is also listed in his top four as well. Woods said that they are listed there because of his relationship with Brent Venables going back to when he was on the coaching staff at Clemson University. I'm pretty sure that had a lot to do with Collins, including Clemson in his top 5 as well. But like I said, Alabama and Georgia are in there. I think those are going to be 2 of the programs that are going to push for him really hard moving forward. Guys who release their top 5 at this point of time usually want to start taking those official visits. Of course, they have 5 official visits, so when they release top 5, it usually paints a picture of which schools they want to take official visits to. We will continue to cover Kelby and to see exactly what he wants to do this summer, possibly announce a commitment for his senior season, which is something a lot of guys do when they have a top 5, top 4, top 3 at the moment. So that is something to look out for when it comes to Kelby Collins, the 4-star defensive end out of Gardendale High School, who I saw play last season when Gardendale took on Florence High School. Every time I see Collins, no matter if it's in a game setting or in a camp setting, his physicality always comes to the forefront. I think he's one of the more physical defensive linemen in the 2023 recruiting class, a very strong prospect. Gardendale uses him as an inside rusher at times, also allow him to rush from the edge, but I think his physicality is his biggest strength at the moment, along with his muscle and his strength. So I think he's a prospect that Alabama really likes in this 2023 recruiting class along the defensive front, along with 5-star defensive end Jaden Wayne, who actually is going to take an official visit to Georgia on May 20th. He is in the process of setting up an official visit with the Crimson Tide. He's hopeful that he will visit Alabama actually in the fall for his official visit, but he also wants to get out to Tuscaloosa this summer as well. He visited Alabama a couple of weeks ago, and he told me that the Tide were at the top of his recruitment after that visit. They have really been recruiting him very hard over the last couple of months. His relationship with the Crimson Tide's new outside linebacker coach Coleman Hustler has continued to improve. He said they talk almost every week. He's hopeful that Hustler will actually be on the road and get an opportunity to come out to Washington to watch him in action, or just to check in with him in Tacoma, Washington at Lincoln High School. So Jaden Wayne is hopeful that he will be able to take an official visit to Tuscaloosa during the fall. Like I said, I feel the Crimson Tide are in the driver's seat when it comes to his recruitment. He said they were at the top of his recruitment after his last visit to Tuscaloosa. So Jaden Wayne is hopeful that he will get to Tuscaloosa for that official visit, most likely during the football season, for a game, which is sure to be an amazing experience for him and his family. But like I said at the top of the show, a lot of people want to know the answer to the question, is Alabama off of Arch Manning? Is Arch Manning just throwing the Crimson Tide out of his top school list, no longer wants to be recruited by the Tide? And that answer will be no, and I think the answer is no, and it's evidently clear because Alabama's offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien and the Crimson Tide's defensive coordinator Pete Golding was actually at his practice on yesterday. On Monday, both coaches got out to see Arch Manning at a football practice. Of course, going back to the basketball season when Newman was on the hardwood, Alabama's offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, the defense coordinator Pete Golding, and Nick Saban actually took a visit to Louisiana to see Arch Manning play basketball, and a lot of the schools listed in his top school list actually got out to his basketball games as well. So the Crimson Tide are still pushing for Arch Manning. They still want the 5-star quarterback to be included in their 2023 recruiting class, along with some of the other programs who were still recruiting Arch as well. We take a look at Texas, Florida. Pretty sure Ole Miss is not going to go down without a fight with these ties to the program. So the Crimson Tide are still going to push after Arch Manning, and his recruitment is something to pay attention to very closely in terms of his recruitment, because despite him having a lot of attention on his recruitment, with him being the #1 overall player in the 2023 recruiting class, has not been very public about his recruitment. He has not done a ton of interviews. He recently got on Twitter, and I don't think he has made a single tweet yet. So he has been a bit on the quieter side in terms of his recruitment. I know a lot of reporters went out to his practice on Monday, and he basically confirmed the schools that have been previously rumored to be in his top school list. Those are the schools listed in his top school list, schools he are interested in, with Alabama being one of them. So it is safe to say that the Arch Manning Crimson Tide pushing for him, it's not over with. The Tide are still in the mix for the 5-star quarterback. We will see how that plays out as things go on. Hopefully the Crimson Tide will be able to get him on campus this summer, and I think that could go a long way with the Crimson Tide possibly landing him. They are still very much interested in landing the Manning and the Newman product out of Louisiana. But like I've said on a couple of different videos, he's not the only 2023 quarterback the Crimson Tide are going after. He's not the only Louisiana quarterback the Tide are going after in the 2023 recruiting class in terms of quarterbacks, with Eli Hollingstein also being high on the Crimson Tide's 2023 quarterback board. I did a reaction video to Hollingstein's footage, his junior footage, actually on our YouTube page. I did one on Manning and Hollingstein. Be sure to check out that when you get an opportunity when you wrap up this video. But taking a look at Eli's game, I really like his ability to put the ball where it is needed, especially his incredible ball placement in terms of passes across the middle in coverage. Nice touch on his deep ball, great size, 6'3", 6'4", weighing approximately 220 pounds, and looks as if the Crimson Tide really seem to like him. They have hosted him a couple of times since he decommitted from the Texas A&M Aggies. They actually hosted him when he was committed to the Aggies, and with this recruitment back open, the Crimson Tide continue to look like one of the top programs in his recruitment. So we're going to continue to hear about Eli Hollingstein as well. The Zachary High School product, like I said, is one of the Crimson Tide's top quarterback targets alongside Arch Manning. You also have to continue to put Dylan Lonergan in the mix. He actually released a top 4 and included the Tide in that top 4. We take a look at Lonergan, comparing him to Eli Hollingstein and also Arch Manning. He's more of a dual threat guy. He can do a lot more with his feet than those two guys. But Lonergan recently released that top 5 and included Alabama, South Carolina, Florida, Stanford, and Ohio State. So it's going to be interesting to watch his recruitment play out as well. He's going to be one of those guys you do not hear a lot about. I think simply because everybody wants to hear about Arch Manning, and also I think Eli Hollingstein is picking up some traction as well with his popularity, especially among Alabama fans, because the Crimson Tide, like I said, look as if they are willing to take a commitment from Eli Hollingstein in this 2023 recruiting class. And with Arch Manning still on the board, they are still going to go after him. Those rumors were not particularly true that he was just backing off of Alabama and Alabama was backing off of him. The Tide are still going strong for a 5-star quarterback out of Newman High School in Louisiana. But that is what I wanted to talk about on today's show of The Process. Be sure to stay locked in on our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, and on YouTube, my personal Twitter as well. I will continue to hit the road this week to check out some of the Crimson Tide's commits and some of their top targets inside the state of Alabama, in the state of Georgia, and hopefully in the state of Florida really soon. We'll have those updates. If you guys want to pick up some recent updates that I was able to provide when I was on the road, you guys can check out our video on Peter Woods and Tony Mitchell. Also, on the last episode of The Process, I talked about James Smith, the 5-star defensive tackle, and also 4-star outside linebacker Quay Russaw, who both dropped a very big top schools list recently. You guys can check out that last episode of The Process to hear a little bit about the latest in their recruitment, with both of them dropping a top 11 recently. But thank you guys so much for joining me today on our YouTube page on The Process. Hit that like button before you leave. Hit that subscribe button. Make sure you are subscribed to Touchdown Alabama on YouTube. Also, be sure to hit the notification bell. Be notified when we drop content on our YouTube page. Then head over to touchdownalabama.com. Pick up your subscription. With that subscription, you will be able to read all of our subscriber-only articles. Even if you do not have a subscription or do not want to get a subscription, be sure to just check out our website. It's pretty much filled with information about the Alabama football program. Then head to the Google Play Store if you have an Android device to download the Touchdown Alabama app. If you have an Apple device, be sure to go to the Apple App Store to download the app as well. As always, I am Justin Smith, the scouting and recruiting analyst for Touchdown Alabama.
Process.